Welcome to Elevate the Podcast, a storytelling and business podcast where we highlight and mastermind entrepreneurs in the agricultural, Western, and rural space.
We're your hosts, Natalie Kovarik
and Tara Vanderdusen.
And today's episode is a mastermind episode where we help an entrepreneur just like you assess, optimize, and strategize their business or brand live on the air.
Created by agriculture for agriculture. We open doors for the rural, Western, and agricultural entrepreneur so they can elevate themselves, their businesses, and the lifestyles that we all love. Hi friends, Tara here. Before we get started with today's show, I wanted to talk to you about your Instagram presence. Nowadays, no matter what your business is, you can pretty much consider Instagram a mandatory social media platform for marketers. But your presence on the gram won't make a difference unless you make it impactful and have a clear visual and verbal identity that generates leads, spreads brand awareness, builds social proof, and increases engagement. Unsure of how to do that? Let us help you. Right now, if you go to our website, elevateyouragstory.com and sign up for our email list, you will get a handcrafted how to audit your Instagram from Natalie and I. This is a downloadable PDF tool that we have created that will walk you through how to build an online presence that will lay a solid foundation for a successful brand and business. That's elevateyouragstory.com. Look for the pop-up and let us help you showcase yourself, your brand, and your message in a way that will convert followers into an engaged community and paying clients. Today, we are speaking with Ashley Machado. Ashley is the granddaughter of a dairy farmer and wife to a calf rancher and almond farmer in California. She has a BA in human development and a master's in social work with an emphasis in clinical mental health. Ashley is rethinking the way we support mental health in the ag industry and specializes in breaking down big ideas and deep feelings into simple and actionable strategies for ag families and businesses alike. Her goal is for everyone in the ag industry to have the tools they need for their mental health toolbox by talking about things like anxiety, self-growth, relationships, and communication.
Ashley has been fortunate enough to arrive at a place where she feels incredibly aligned with her passions and is now looking to turn them into a profitable business. With so many dreams and different paths to bring them to fruition, Ashley is here today to talk about what so many of us struggle with, where to start in creating an offer, and how to best spend our time selling that offer. Tune in today as we take Ashley's ideas and turn them into a working model she can put out into the world.
Welcome, Ashley.
Hi.
Thanks for joining us today. To get us started, you want to share a little bit about what you are struggling with, what your offers are, and kind of where you want to get us started today.
Yeah, so most importantly, I think for me as a business owner and maybe all business owners, last year I spent the year just working on my viewpoint of myself, what I can offer, where I can bring value, what I want to do. And this year I'm really feeling aligned in where I am. And I've kind of like started to build my business funnel. So at I guess it's the tip or the bottom, I don't know, the smallest part of the business funnel is a freebie offer where I have printables for anxiety, breath work, and like things you can do in the moment. It's a 3 printable page. Then I have this is where what I want to talk about is working on putting out modules in an online offer space where people can buy videos, and I just give a ton of information on anxiety, depression, and other topics to come later in the year. And then next, speaking in events like that, and then one-on-one sessions. So I'm feeling pretty secure in my funnel. I just am really launching this middle part now and looking for some help there.
Yeah, so a little bit about your course or your modules, as you call them. You know, how long are you thinking? What will they look like? What are the different options with them?
Currently out there, I've seen a couple of people do like longer modules, and I was thinking of doing that. They're like an hour to an hour and a half. But then I was like, I don't know if I can really actually get a farmer, rancher, or even a mom to sit down and watch something for an hour and a half and then do the workbook. We barely have enough time in the day as it is. So what I would like to do is break it down. So say, because in May, I have the content written for an anxiety. I guess we could talk about that too, like whether to call it like modules or a workshop, an anxiety one and a depression one. And I was thinking, okay, I'll just talk about anxiety. But then I was like, an hour and a half, that's too long. So if I could break it down into each tool for each workshop I'm doing. So it'd be like anxiety, what is anxiety? How does it present? What does it look like? How can other people maybe see and sense that you're feeling anxious or stressed right now? The difference between stress, anxiety, and worry. And then on top of that, tools for how to work through it.
So is this like a one-time buy? Like they'll buy it and then they don't need to keep paying? Like, is it it's a one-time buy?
Yeah.
I personally really love the word workshop for this. Like,
Okay.
I just think of it, it entails like working on yourself, working through things. Like, I like that kind of feel versus like module feeling very like a teaching course
Yeah.
kind of.
Yeah.
That's just my initial thoughts. And then, I like the idea of it being broken down kind of into lessons a little bit, but
Mhm.
with it in mind that there are going to be people, if it was me and it was an hour, I would sit down and watch it for 1 hour. So I think that it's possible to break it into lessons just to make it like digestible, easy to take notes. Like, okay, these are the notes from, we're talking about what it is, how we're going to work through it, each of those. But with the like it being streamlined to think that you could watch it all at one time. So not like, okay, when we come back, or like not wrapping it up in that kind of way,
Okay.
keeping it flowing, but breaking it into those kind of like segments, I guess might be like a better word. What are you thinking, Natalie?
Yeah, I mean, I think if it's just a one-time buy, Ash, I don't think there's a problem with having it be longer.
Okay.
Because they are obviously interested in getting that value. They want to know what's in that video. And if it's not like a continually working thing where it's like every week they have to revisit it. I mean, I think when you're asking for the repeat return at a longer time, you maybe get into issues. But I think if it's just a one-time thing, anyone who wants the information in that video is going to order it and then sit down that night when they have an hour, or wait till the Saturday morning. Like they're going to carve out that time to watch the 1 hour if it's just a one-time buy.
Okay.
Do you know how you'll be delivering them? Like platform?
No, that I have, like, writing content and writing stuff for this is like I could do it in my sleep. The technology stuff behind it, I'm like staring at the computer like, what is this? So I'm researching platforms right now. Do you guys have any advice or places I should be looking?
I don't know who you use for your website, but I know that there's an option. Like for me, I use Squarespace. There's an option for a digital product. So if you had it already, the video like recorded, you would people could go on your website and purchase that. So if you had it like recorded through Zoom or whatever that may be, you could go and have it on there. That you would purchase it, and they would get sent a link to the video that they'd be able to watch, as well as like the downloadable form. So I'm not sure exactly where you want to host it, but I feel like the sell through, like I have used that before, and I really liked how it worked.
Mhm.
I also think you don't need to overthink it. It doesn't need to be a big fancy platform. I mean, I think you could literally record it, like store it on YouTube or Vimeo, and you create a nice welcome email and like a worksheet or downloadable packet that goes with it that they get, and then there's a link that kicks them over to watch it on wherever. I mean, I think especially rolling this out, like keep your MVP in mind. Like it just needs to be something like, how can you, especially before you invest all the time and energy and money into like finding a fancy platform to host it on, why don't you just roll out in like the easiest way you can to see how do people watch it, how long do they watch it, how many order, like really test your model before you put in all that time and energy in it anyway.
Okay. I mean, I wonder if there's a way that I could test. I guess that's what you're saying, is test it out on Zoom or Vimeo before.
Yeah,
Okay.
exactly.
Okay.
And then you could get feedback. Like, you could see, I mean, I don't think both of those platforms would give you back ends. Well, YouTube would. YouTube would allow you to see like retention rate, like how far people watched in before they stopped and like analyzed. And I think you could probably see how many people finished it and didn't, I think you could gather a lot of really useful information doing it with something simple like that, charging a price point that matches it. And then, as you develop and hone it, working that price point up to match the new delivery format of like a professional login site where it's like hosted on an actual platform.
Okay. And you guys are thinking that farmer, rancher, farm wife, ranch wife, or like anyone in the ag industry is going to sit down for an hour and watch this.
I think if they make the choice to purchase it, then yes, like that they're like committed to doing that. I think yes, like, and I think this would be a really great like I think with therapy people feel really nervous about reaching out, setting up like a formal meeting. And so
Yeah.
I think like in my mind this would be a very like non-committal way to be like, gosh, I'm really struggling with this. I want to take this workshop where I'm like anonymous. I get to watch it. I get to like work through what their suggestions are. And so I see it as like a really great first step, even for like continued therapy, of just having them be more open to that. So I absolutely think I would like if I purchased this, I would sit down and watch the entire hour. Like I would be committed to wanting to do that.
Yeah, I don't even think you should. I don't think it needs to be an hour. And I don't think I think it could roll out either way and it's not going to be a difference.
Okay.
Like I wouldn't be like, oh, that's a great offer, but I'm not going to buy it because Ash said it's like I have to sit down for 1 hour. Or I'm not going to be like, oh, that's a really great offer, but it's in short lessons. Like that, I don't think that's a pain point of the person. I think it was great that you were conscientious of like the time that people in agriculture have, or, people not out, I don't want to like target it just to agriculture, but I think that was like a smart thing to assess. Like that is quite a bit of time for them. But I think the only reason, and I mentioned that earlier, I think the only reason that the time would play is if it's a continual thing where like every week they have to do it.
Yeah.
I think if it's a one-time thing, I don't think it makes a difference. I think what makes a difference more is what's actually in that video.
Okay. That sounds good. So then after I was thinking like, okay, I have my first one for anxiety, my first one for depression, and some basic tools for it. Then, as a flow through, I could even do anxiety 2, depression 2 later in the year if necessary. Feel like, oh my gosh, I love that. I want more. There's so much more that I could do.
Yeah. And I think that's important that you're already assessing that, because we know it's easier to resell to a customer that like knows, likes, and trusts us than it is to bring in new people. So, I mean, I think that's a struggle a lot of people have is like, oh, I created an offer that's one time. Like, how do I continually find more people to get into that funnel?
Yeah.
And you spend a lot of time and energy doing that. Whereas it's like, okay, how can I actually further serve the person that's already in my funnel?
Yeah.
So I think it's smart I think it's a great starting point to be like, okay, these are what I offer. They're one-time things. But I definitely think if that's all you were focusing on, you would eventually hit a point where you're like, I am struggling and I'm exhausted. Like I cannot keep just funneling new people in.
Yeah.
So I would start like I don't think you need to roll it out right away. I think it'd be smart to just roll this out by itself. But I think in the back of your mind, you need to be thinking like, okay, how do I further serve the people that are in my, mental health community now? Because I think that is really where like the long-term goes for being the difference between being like a business owner and an operator, where you can kind of like sit back and it's not so much work on your end versus, like I said, if you just keep it like this, I think you're going to be in like a constant grind where you're just really exhausted.
And on that note, I feel like when you roll out the second like version of this, at that point would be the time to reassess and be like, well, in what I'm doing, is my minimal viable product working, or do I need to move to a platform where then I can host these multiple like versions, like, the different workshops that you work people through? That would be the time that I would evaluate that. But you never know, you may get through this first one and be like, that actually was great. I got all the information I needed. And it may not be time yet to do that, but that's kind of when I would evaluate like the platforms.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, you're on Flowdesk, aren't you?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I literally sent out an email the other day that was like to my rural rooted gals, and it was like, click this link to download your, pre-retreat homework. Click this link to watch the video. I mean, I feel like you could just create a nice email template that when people sign up, that gets kicked to them, and the link to watch the video is embedded. The link to download whatever worksheet goes with it to work through. Like, I think it could be really, really simple for your first launch. Like, I don't think you need to spend time researching and like figuring out platforms. I feel like that'll just be a headache for you when you could be testing it out.
Okay, well then let's even get deeper for this first one. The couple I've seen, it's like a Zoom link and it's live, so people can come for the first one. They're like, okay, I'm going to host this workshop March 17th, and you can come, and then I'm going to ask questions. I'm going to talk about everything. You can ask questions after, and then that's the link that they sell. Or it's a pre-recorded link, and that's the link that's sold. Which one do you think is better?
I feel like they both offer value in different ways. I would be tempted to start with one and then like upsell like the other. And initially, maybe my gut is kind of saying like do the pre-recorded one where people can do it on their own time and like get introduced to you, and then like follow up with thank you for joining. I'm going to be actually hosting another like a live where we can have a Q&A. And then again, going back to those already like warm audience, your people that are already in your funnel, and talk with them about kind of like continuing the conversation.
Okay.
Yeah, I hate to give you the same advice instead of like offering a different viewpoint, but I agree. I think it makes sense to like, especially with mental health. I mean, Tara already touched on like, I feel like some people are maybe, unfortunately, it's still taboo or they're still
Yeah.
uncomfortable. Or, so I think by asking people to come live for their very first time, I do think you'd have more people hesitant to do it versus building that like no trust with them where they're like, oh, I absolutely want to get in. And I actually had questions about those works, you know, like what she talked about, Ash talked about here. So I feel like you could offer it for free and like for your first one to test it. But I definitely think moving forward as you're like rolling this out, that is absolutely something you should charge like as an upsell for an extra X amount of money, you know, 1 month after the purchase or like whatever. I don't know how that would work because this would probably be available all the time. So maybe you host them once a month that people can pay the amount to come into, where you kind of work through it and talk about things. Again, I mean, I know they've already watched the content, but like watching content is way different than like having a conversation about content. So I don't even think it has to be something different. I think you could literally work through it again and they just have the opportunity to ask questions about it.
Yeah, I think the once a month thing, I mean, do it on the schedule you'd like, but like something like once a month. And so once they enroll, you know, like a week later or whenever it is, they get a follow-up email that says, hey, we're having our, you know, Q&A live. If you want to continue this conversation based on, you know, what you just went through with the workshop, this is an additional, I don't know, X amount of money, and join our live Q&A this month.
Mm-hmm.
And then it could be ongoing. Like you never know. Like then maybe those people are like, I really loved that and I'd like to join again like the next week or next month or whatever. I don't know exactly like what you're going to be talking about, but I could just see a lot of options going in that direction.
Yeah. And I would just keep it consistent. So it's like the fourth Sunday of every month or, you know, again, whatever fits your schedule. But I think that would be the key point with it. I don't think it matters if it's weekend or weekday or not, like whatever. I mean, it probably does. But I think the biggest thing to think about that is like people need to know it's like the third, you know, Thursday evening. Like they just know that is built in, that's when you go live. And maybe you have two. Maybe you have one that like talks about that and maybe it's a live about something else. Like, I don't know. I think you're just like at the tip of the iceberg of what you could do with all that.
Okay.
So if you feel good about that, I was going to pivot a little bit to give us a little bit of time to talk about, I know your workshops and just kind of your bigger picture things with companies, if we want to kind of touch on that.
Totally. So I like what I envision like in the future. And I think sometimes I get caught up in this is like, I see like big picture and then like the steps on the way sometimes seem to just, you know, go to the wayside for me. Obviously something I'm working on, but what I see for the future is a place for everybody in ag and rural America can come and get resources and information about, you know, everything from relationships, communication, anxiety, like everything that really kind of affects our day-to-day life that we don't actually think about. And we just think, oh, I'm just supposed to know how to communicate when no one really teaches how to do it. And with that, I'm like, okay, how can I serve more people and a bigger audience? And how can this really make a big difference? And I think that businesses and ag businesses really touch a lot of people, the people they serve and the people in their businesses. And I would love to create curriculum workshops for them to kind of give to their employees and give to the people that they serve. But I haven't really found businesses that are willing to step out of the box. All of them are super intrigued and we've had multiple Zoom calls about it, but none of them are like, yeah, let's do it.
So I feel like there's so many directions with this. So I'll break it down what I'm like seeing in my head, I guess, is you have like actual farms, ranches that would use this like on farm for mental health development, then larger like ag businesses that could potentially use it for their employees. Yes. And then I think of like something that I really think could be interesting, and maybe you've already thought of this, like I know of a women's group that's like focused in agriculture, specific industry in agriculture, and they do workshops or ongoing training. So I know they did one that was like teaching Spanish, and you signed up for like the weekly Spanish course. And so I almost wonder if something like that would be a great intro, like this the person that I'm thinking of is very open to doing, I feel like, all sorts of different things. And it would expose you to all of their sponsors and their larger businesses. And it's something that like this company offers that you pay into. So the Spanish course, like you paid $50 and you were signed up for an 8-week course. And so then, it would just give you exposure to a wide range of people. And then going back to the ag companies, and I feel like I agree with you. We've got to think about companies that are kind of thinking outside the box and who are doing things a little different and who are really cutting edge with, diversity and inclusion and mental health and all of those topics that I think kind of in some ways go hand in hand of just having like a culture of, acceptance in a workplace. And so I think there is a lot of opportunity there. It's just being very thoughtful and strategic about thinking about what businesses are kind of doing that.
Ash, you had mentioned earlier on about like speaking about mental health.
Mm-hmm.
And you've done that recently, right?
Yeah.
Was that just like your story and the importance of it, or what was that? What did that speech look like? What was that topic?
I broke down how many farmers and ranchers are struggling with mental health. And then I gave like what it looks like, how it can present, and then tangible tools for it. So everyone who came like walked away with stuff that they could do that night or the next day.
So I think there's two now, like furthering yourself as a speaker, and I swear I'm tying this back to the workshops with the companies. So I think that that's obviously a needed path for you as a speaker. Like when people are reaching out, it's like Ashley could come and talk like that, like a just, Ashley straightforward speaking. But so many conferences have breakout workshops. Mm-hmm. And I feel like you could create a package that is also where you maybe do that mini workshop that like Tara was just kind of talking about, where it's not like a course that they obviously signed up for or do over a period of time, but you like packaged and minied it down to like a workshop over an hour and a half. Because again, I think if you could get that into conference workshops, that would again expose you to the companies, the people who were there. Like I think that would help. I think you have a really great idea, but I think you're skipping forward by pitching it just to I think you could go down that route, but you're going to just probably get a lot of no's until you find that one gold mine yes. And I think something you could be doing in the meantime, like you could still be reaching out to companies and fostering those relationships. But one thing you could do in the meantime is like work on not letting people know that you're available for conference workshops to do a mental health workshop. And by putting that out there, I think that would maybe give you the exposure or lead you down that path, or the person you need to be connected to kind of get that into like the bigger picture with the companies, the different, that larger scale.
Okay.
And with that, I wonder if there would be opportunity. Obviously, with mental health, I feel like this would be like a delicate balance. But if you had, a videographer that came with you to one of these conferences, if it was okay and approved by the conference, to get footage of you that you could package into a really great pitch then later on to companies. Like, this is what I have to offer. This is me. I mean, every speaker should be doing that. My self included, it's on my to-do list. But I think that this would be a great way to package it up. I think you're going to have to really sell it and show them what they're getting, because I think you have some big hurdles. I mean, not impossible hurdles, just you've really got to show them what you can do and what it would look like. You got to hold their hand through that process a little more.
Unfortunately.
Yeah. And I think video could really help you do that.
Okay. Don't get discouraged over the hurdles that come. I kind of actually find it exciting because I do feel like mental health is relatively something new that ag is talking about. But with that comes excitement from people, oh, maybe I want to be the first one to try it. So I don't get discouraged. I know it's going to be a little harder, maybe a lot harder to pitch mental health stuff to companies and, conferences and stuff. I like the idea of, doing workshops at conferences. So I'm really intrigued with starting there.
I think overall you have such a great plan, such a needed thing. And so while there is challenges you may face or, setbacks, I think that this is just a very needed space for us to break into and be having conversations about. So I really commend you for that. And I'm excited to see where this goes for you and see this grow and flourish into what I know you're hoping it to be.
Yeah, same. And I would I know you had talked about this earlier about big picture. So I think it's amazing that you have those, and I know you'll get there, but focus on that first step of what you could do to maybe create that bigger picture for you later on.
Coach Kaya has a great illustration picture she paints about climbing the mountain, and that, just take the one step. Think about it as the mountain's in fog and all you can do is take that next step. The big mountain is there, the big picture is there, but just that every step is going to get you up the mountain. This was such a great coaching conversation. We truly believe that we have so much to learn from one another because while our businesses may be different, what we as entrepreneurs experience as leaders of our business are infinitely similar in nature.
You guys know at the end of every episode, we like to summarize the discussion and advice given during that episode into a few main takeaways so that you can implement them to strengthen and grow your own business. This week, it's all about focusing on your MVP or your minimally viable product. Don't get so caught up in the big goal that you lose focus on what you can do today to move the needle forward in your business.
Thanks again to Ashley for coming on the podcast today. If you are interested in submitting yourself to be mentored on the podcast like Ashley was, please go to elevateyouragstory.com/podcast and fill out the form to submit yourself. We'd love to have you on air with us.
And don't forget, we love connecting with you. Subscribe to our podcast and leave us a review to help more rural entrepreneurs find us.